And welcome to the webinar, 3 Ways Quitting Sugar Will Change Your Body and Your Life. And I hope that you all get something really helpful out of this. I know that this is a big problem for a lot of people, and we had I have had a number of people register for the webinar. So it obviously is a topic that resonates with everyone. So let's have a look. Now, just quickly housekeeping. I know we all hate it, but we have to do it right at the beginning here. So how long are we going to be here for tonight? Well, I didn't get a chance to do a practice run. So the answer is I'm not sure, but I'll be aiming to get out of your faces in about an hour by the time we get through everything. And I'll give you an outline in a minute of exactly what we're going to do. So everybody's hopefully found the chat box. Apologies for the duplicate emails and the link problems. I think I have evicted all my tech gremlins. So hopefully all is good now. All right, so the outline, here we go. I'm going to spend about 3.5 minutes on who am I, just for those people who don't actually know me. I know a number of you are my private clients, so you obviously know me quite well, but there's a number of you who are brand new. So I'll give you about 3.5 minutes because it's kind of a boring thing to some degree. And then we're going to get into the main part of it, which is the 3 ways quitting sugar will change your body and your life. We'll spend most of our time here. And then if you will indulge me for 5 minutes or so, I'd like to just give you a little peek into a new program that I'm starting in about 10 days. So Your Sexy Sugar-Free Body. And then we'll do some Q&A. And in fact, before the Q&A, I will give you my secret weapon against the cravings. So I haven't forgotten, it is definitely in there. So stick around. Secret weapon to stop your, kill your cravings in under 30 seconds flat. So okay, I'll pop back out just for 1 second to make sure that everybody's okay in the chat box. All good here, excellent, very good. Okay, here we go again. All right, this is me, and it's a fairly recent photo actually. My website is foodmoodandmore.com. I've recently had a website overhaul, so it looks much nicer than it did before. I haven't yet managed to get all of the info back up on there, so some of the pages kind of point you to contacting me, but I am working on it, I promise. But there is lots of good stuff there, and I hope that you like the new changes that I've put into place. Now, I have created quite a few programs that help people to lose weight, fix their health problems that they've been putting up with, and generally get healthy. So I'm actually trained holistic nutritionist. So what that means is that I'm not necessarily interested in telling you what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat and being like a food Nazi kind of thing. I'm more interested in being a bit of a food detective and seeing what's going on in your body and why that particular condition that you're suffering with has come about. What has changed in your body to allow that to happen? So, you know, it's a bit like gardening, I guess. You know, you've got your soil, and depending on the quality of your soil, is what you'll actually grow in there. So depending on what the quality of the soil in your body is, so that's right down at the cell level, it depends on what type of things you'll grow, and that means whether you'll grow health or whether you'll grow illness. So that's what I'm interested in, is looking at why has this problem developed, and then going back to that soil level and seeing how can we change it. So how can we solve that? So about just putting a band-aid onto the symptoms that you might be feeling. What I want to do is make a change, find the cause of what's going on for you. Okay, hopefully you've still got me, because I've got a little message saying that my internet connection is unstable. And I'm actually, surprisingly enough, I'm sitting in my lounge room, which normally I would, normally I'm kind of out of the way, but I came out into the lounge room tonight because and I don't know why, because we've got NBN here and, you know, we've got this really fast internet, and here we are with it dumping out. Okay, so yes, nutritionist without band-aids. A little bit of trivia. I am an Aussie, for those of you who are international visitors tonight. So I apologise for my accent, although it seems that most foreigners enjoy an Australian accent. And hopefully I don't speak too fast, because a lot of foreigners do comment that we Aussies speak a bit too fast. So I will try not to lose you as we go along. I have 4 children. 3 of the 4 children are what we in friendly terms, we call them Aspies. So they have Asperger's syndrome. And I have 4 cats as well, and 3 of those are Aspies as well. So we've got 3 Siamese cats and 1 black moggy. 3 Siamese cats are definitely Aspies. So now I love France. I have been there. I've been so lucky to have visited France twice, and I'm just fascinated by it, and I have no clue why. I have been since I was a child. I love the language, and now that I've actually been there, I love the countryside as well, and it is just beautiful. So and finally, I think I've got a cat coming behind me. So you may well see some of my cats, considering I'm out in the middle of the house. So they're chasing each other around, and they may well present themselves on screen at some point. I'm actually moving house in a week. So if I look around me, and in fact, I'll see if I can actually show you before we just move on straight away. Here is my, look, I've got boxes everywhere. They're just everywhere at the moment. Boxes of boxes and and mess everywhere. So anyway, we will get there. We've all been there, and you do tend to survive it. So okay, now that's my trivia. That's me. Hope that was 3.5 minutes. Let's continue. So I think that most of us can agree, especially if you've shown up tonight, there's obviously a bit of affinity here for this topic, and we are all slaves to sugar. And as I mentioned before, I do have a little secret ingredient that will help us stop being slaves, but I wanted to talk briefly about why that is. And that requires me just to do a very short history lesson on the history of sugar. So in the days of our grandparents, and these are not actually my grandparents, my grandmother is still alive, she's 90 years old. So, but in the days of our grandparents, everyone actually ate fatty food. So this was very typical of the types of foods that people ate. So back in those days, people ate butter rather than margarine. They ate, or they drank the milk straight from the dairy, full cream and all. And they ate all of the animal, what they call these days, eating the. I just wonder whether anyone can identify what that is in the frying pan there. Because everybody ate offal back in those days. So anybody know what we've got? Type it up in the chat box. I've come back to the chat box for a moment. Deb, thanks. I'm dropping in and out a little bit. So yeah, no idea. It's an interesting one. When I first looked at it, I actually thought it was brains, and it does look a bit like brains, but it actually isn't. Let me go back and show you again. These are bull's testicles. How delicious, hey? But the interesting thing about offal is that it's very fatty. And if you think about, in nature, when say for example, a tiger or a lion, eating, it's a bit gross really, but eating the belly or eating the brain is the prized area. So, if you're talking about pack animals, for example, it's the leader of the pack who gets to have those prizes. And instinctively, these animals just know that these are the parts that are really good for you. So people did eat fatty food back in those days. And I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about why fat is important for our diets as well. But then, what happened? Back in those days, there was no diabetes, or very, very little type 2 diabetes. There wasn't much Alzheimer's or dementia. There wasn't much obesity either. So, it seemed like people were really quite healthy. But given that people weren't really suffering with these kinds of diseases, it was interesting to see that the government and the powers that be, who know all in nutrition, for some reason decided that we should eat a low-fat diet. And so things that became really popular were margarine, and seed oils, so like canola oil. And you know, canola in the field here looks absolutely beautiful as you drive around the countryside, but it is a very highly processed oil, as are all of those vegetable and seed oils. So, and because they're so highly processed, when they go into your body, they have a very specific type of fat. And our cells are kind of surrounded by what's called a cell membrane. It's kind of like the skin around the cell. And the skin around the cell, or the cell membrane, is made up of a fatty layer. Now, if you predominantly eat margarine and seed oils and fried foods with the fats that come out of the deep fryers, those are the types of fats that go into your cell's skin. And if you eat the type of fats like, you know, you're eating fatty fish like salmon, or you're having olive oil, there goes my cats chasing each other around the room, or avocados, for example, you're getting these good fats out of these foods, then your cell skin is made up of the good fats. So I'm sure you can easily come to the conclusion of which one is better for your cells. So water and nutrients have to pass in and out through your cell skin. So you really want that skin to be functioning as best as it possibly can. So anyway, back to the history. These seed oils like the canola and sunflower oil and the margarine were very noted as the new things. And the population listened and they did what they were told. And the wheat industry was also really, really booming at this point, and our dietary guidelines have come to reflect those changes. So in a lot of dietary guidelines still, there is 6 serves of grains each day. To eat low-fat foods still, butter is not better. All of that it's really not that good for you. Now, the problem is that when you remove fat from food, it doesn't really taste very good. Fat has a particular taste, but even more so a feel to it. They call it mouth feel. And if you can imagine that feel of eating chocolate, you know, you get that creaminess in your mouth. That's the mouth feel that fat has. So when they took all the fat out of the foods, they had to actually somehow make it taste good. And they did that by adding back a whole lot of sugar. And that's still the case to this day. So if you are in the supermarket and you pick up say, for example, a low-fat yogurt or a no-fat yogurt, the way they've actually made that taste good is to add a whole bunch of sugar into it. So not so good for you. And look at what's happened all around us now. So people have gained weight and they're having a lot of trouble losing it, despite potentially eating a very low-fat diet and exercising and doing everything else that they've been told to do. They're really having trouble losing, and we've got this situation known as weight loss resistance. So despite everything that people are doing, they're having trouble losing weight. Diabetes is one of the fastest growing problems that we have, and then there is Alzheimer's and dementia as well, and not to mention heart disease. So we'll talk a little bit more about each of these tonight and how sugar is actually contributing to these. So something doesn't seem to add up with this whole low-fat scenario, does it? Now, I just might take a break here just for a moment, come back and check in the chat box if any of you guys have had questions. Yeah, you, Deb, you're right. I assume that was to the bull's testicles. Yep. I think that'd be the type of thing that you'd have to serve up without telling anybody what it actually was. So, yes. Okay, back to the presentation. Sugar is addictive. Now, let's talk about this for a minute. What's your drug of choice? So it's actually been shown in research studies that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So here we have in the photo on the left a very modern day way of taking your cocaine. You know, you've got your smartphone and your credit card to chop up your lines and so on. And it's really interesting to see that there was actually a study on rats, admittedly, and I know that we're not rats. However, often what happens with animals translates to what happens with us. And in this rat study, they gave the rats the choice of sugar or cocaine. And every day, the rats chose the sugar. So what happens is that sugar actually fires off the same pleasure chemicals in your brain as what cocaine does, or what any other drug does, really. And because of this, it works in exactly the same way as a drug does. So it creates cravings. It creates withdrawal symptoms if you try and give it up. And so the lack of willpower that you tend to feel is actually really a drug withdrawal. And it's almost impossible to win with willpower over a chemical reaction like this that's going on all day, every minute of every day. So if you eat a lot of sugar, then just like a drug, your pleasure and reward chemicals are firing in your brain, and you need more and more to give you the same rush or the same high or the same hit. And people who have been drug addicts and have then become addicted to sugar at some point, they tell us that it is exactly the same feeling that they get. It's only the drug of choice that's different. So how do you know if you're addicted? Well, you will likely get cravings even though you may have just eaten or you're not even hungry. You're going to be overeating. So again, you're not even hungry, but you're still eating. You feel guilty about what you're eating, or you know that you shouldn't be eating it, but you do anyway. And you might make excuses or hide what you're eating or convince yourself that it's okay. And we're all very good at convincing ourselves that it's all okay, aren't we? And you've probably actually tried quitting at some point too. Most people have actually tried quitting at some point, and then you get into that spiral where you think you're going okay, and then the cravings get so strong that you give in and you eat something sugary again, and there you are in that craving give in kind of cycle. So who can relate to that? Smoking friends, when are you going to quit? Whereas with sugar, it seems like people are always trying to just cut down or just eat a little bit. Well, we don't actually say that to our smoking friends, do we? Are you going to just smoke a little bit? We're always encouraging them to give up, because we know the health effects that smoking has on you. So while treating sugar as the addictive substance that it is, and thinking of it as the addictive substance that it is. So yeah, Sue's saying sugar is a problem for her, and it really is a really, really big problem for so many people. So and that's why we're all here, isn't it? So yeah, treat sugar as the addictive substance that it is. 3 ways that quitting sugar will change your body and your life. So change number 1. Who wants to be an Energizer bunny? Anybody? Lynn says she gave up smoking for 14 years and took up her addiction for sugar. Yeah. Sue, you want to be an Energizer bunny? Yep. Awesome. I think we all do, because it's really something that we all struggle with is this lack of energy and the fatigue. So I think that if people are, we wake up in the mornings and we're already tired. You feel like you're waking up unrefreshed, is what we call it in nutrition worlds. And so this fatigue is a really big problem, and it's hard to focus during the day. You've got that brain fog going on as well. That's a really big, and you just, your memories, your words that you need, you can't concentrate, you can't focus, and you're tired, you're falling asleep, especially, in that afternoon, either mid-afternoon sort of 3 p.m. slump, or perhaps just after lunch. So you've got this, you've had your lunch, you've got this full belly, and then you go to sleep, and that's because of the sugar. So let's have a look. Are you eternally exhausted? And I had to choose cat pictures here because they were really so cute. But we're all just so tired. So and here we are again. Has your motivation run off with your mojo? And again, this comes back to sugar. So when you eat sugar, what happens is you get this sugar high, and I'm sure that you've all felt that. You feel great, and you're awake again, and you can keep on going. But the reality is that when there's sugar in your bloodstream, after you've eaten a meal and it's gone through your digestive processes, and then you've got sugar in your bloodstream, sugar is actually a really dangerous substance in your bloodstream. So your body does what it's meant to do, and it gets all that sugar out of your bloodstream. But before that happens, in between the time where you've digested your food and the sugar floods into your bloodstream, you get this sugar high. But then your body works away at getting rid of it out of the bloodstream, and all of a sudden you've got this slump and you've got this sugar low. So that's an energy slump. And that rapid change of getting it back out of your bloodstream can leave you feeling really shaky and wiped out and looking for more sugar to get back that energy. So now, when we're talking about motivation, dopamine is actually the brain chemical or the neurotransmitter that is involved in motivation and mojo. And when there isn't enough, you're actually really unmotivated. So what happens with dopamine, regardless of whether it's sugar that's your drug of choice or whether it is actually an illicit drug, your dopamine actually, your brain actually produces less dopamine the more of a substance you abuse. So even when that's sugar, that's the reason why you need more and more sugar to get the same response. It's because of the dopamine. And this leaves you feeling really unmotivated and flat. So if you want to be the only person in your office who doesn't fall into a coma after lunch, and you find out that it feels really good to not be so tired after lunch and actually be productive, then think about quitting the sugar, because that's what's doing it to you. Okay, number 2. When you are eating sugar, you are toxic from the inside out. So we're actually talking about the health effects on your body that sugar creates. So let's have a look. Sugar, we're going to talk about sugar with cancer. We're going to talk about how it ages you. Look at the heart disease and stroke is a really big problem, and diabetes obviously as well is a really big problem in the world as well. So sugar feeds cancer cells. Now, I'll be honest, I couldn't actually find a proper picture of a cancer cell. And so this is just a random sort of cell. I don't even know what sort of cell it is, but it looks a bit like Saturn with the rings around it. So I'm not sure if we have any Saturn cells. But anyway, cancer cells look much more nasty than these ones do. So let's have a look. Sugar feeds the cancer cells. So cancer cells actually take up 10 to 12 times more sugar than any other cell does. So I believe that gives us a really good indication that cancer cells are actually feeding on the sugar. And that's certainly what a lot of the research has shown. In addition to that, sugar makes your body quite acidic. And an acidic environment is where cancer thrives. It really loves being in an acidic environment, as opposed to an alkaline environment, which is the state that your body will switch to when you are not eating sugar so much. And so, people who have a very clean diet tend to have bodies in an alkaline state, and they tend not to develop cancer. Now, it's obviously not as simplistic as that with cancer. There's certain genetics that are involved and a whole raft of other things. But if you're looking to prevent cancer, then you really do want your body to be in a more alkaline state. Sugar also suppresses your immunity. So at a low grade level, this shows up as people who are sick all the time. You just can't shake off that cold, or every time it starts to get better, then, the next thing you know, you've got it back again. And people who have viral infections. So say, for example, if you have a cold sore virus that lies sleeping in your body, and, once upon a time you only flared out with a cold sore once in a blue moon, and your immune system, and that could be because of the sugar. And no surprises here, sugar makes you overweight, and I am going to talk a little bit about the reasons why that it's not fat that is causing you to gain weight, but why it is sugar that's causing that to happen. Just popping back into the chat for a minute. Everybody's all good. Let's keep on going. Next, sugar ages you faster. Now, what better than a wrinkly elephant bottom? because we're going to talk about wrinkles and sagging and breakouts and looking older than you are. So with sugar, and look, wrinkles and saggy butt, I know that definitely all the ladies here would have at some point in their lives thought about the rapidly developing wrinkles and the effect of gravity. So why does this happen? It's due to a thing called glycation. Now, what happens is when there is sugar in your system, part of the way that your body gets rid of the sugar out of your bloodstream, levels of sugar in your body, is by attaching. Process of attaching sugar to proteins causes something called advanced glycation end products, AGE, advanced glycation end products, AGE. It ages you. It's an ironic kind of abbreviation, really. What happens is that the collagen and the elastin in your skin are the components of the skin that keeps your skin looking smooth and supple and elastic. And obviously we have a lot more of this when we're younger, and so it becomes more of a problem as you get older. Now, the collagen and the elastin are particularly susceptible to glycation and to these AGE products, these advanced glycation end products. And what these AGEs do to your collagen and elastin is it causes them to become quite hard and inflexible. So that's part of where the wrinkles and the sagging comes from. And it prevents new collagen and elastin production. So essentially your elastin and your collagen are getting old as well, and you're not able to regenerate them. So, you know, and a lot of men are concerned about this sort of thing as well. But if you feel like you're looking and feeling older than you really are, this could be the reason why. Okie doke. Oh, my heart. Heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and everything that entails. So, so heart disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol problems, stroke, all of these things come under the banner of cardiovascular disease. And for quite a long time, this has been considered the number one public enemy, because so many people are affected or die from these conditions. That actually sugar is the number one public enemy, because it's what's behind all of these problems. Cholesterol does not come from eating fat in your diet. It has been proven that dietary cholesterol does not cause body cholesterol, or does not cause cholesterol in your bloodstream. It's actually the sugar that does it. Fatty liver. Now, people can develop fatty liver from two main ways. The first is drinking a lot of alcohol, and the second, more common way of developing fatty liver is what's actually called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And again, it comes from sugar, not from eating fat at all. High blood pressure, again, from the sugar. A little bit why. When the sugar is in your system, number one, we've got these in cells as well as to your skin. But when you've got sugar in your system, so let's think about your blood vessels, for example. They're just like a little tube, and sugar actually creates inflammation in the blood vessel. That then affects the lining, the wall of the blood vessel, and makes it, just like your skin, it actually makes it less elastic. Now, we need to have very elastic blood vessels to maintain our blood pressure properly. So whenever you've got inelastic blood vessels, you're much more prone to high blood pressure. Think about, you know, those really thick rubber bands, very kind of stretchy, but they're very thick. So you've really got to pull them a bit harder to stretch them. And if you've ever seen one of those that has become a bit old and it becomes brittle, and, you know, you stretch it and it doesn't spring back again like it's meant to, that's what's happening in your blood vessels from the sugar. And the other thing is that the weight gain that comes with sugar intake also contributes to cardiovascular disease and heart disease. So there's a number of different ways that sugar's actually affecting your sugar in your blood. And anybody who's ever known someone who's diabetic will be familiar with this picture here. We've got the blood glucose meter and the insulin needles. So type 2 is increasing at a rapid rate. And in fact, we're actually seeing definitely teenagers and even young children now with type 2 diabetes, which is really disturbing. And I've put down here just one can, and I'm actually talking about soft drink or soda here. Just one can a day significantly increases your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. However, we have seen reversals of type 2 diabetes in people who take sugar out of their diet, who make a real change and take that sugar out. And so it is possible to turn that around completely, and people have most distinctly made a complete recovery from it. So I'll pop back into the chat box so I can see who's commenting there. Okay, I'm not sure who that is that's just commented, but they're listening in on. So that's fine. We'll definitely get it right, and I will be doing more webinars. And like I said I'm not sure if you're here in the beginning. Oh, Muna, hi Muna. Because I had some tech issues myself, and I was trying to get it all working properly as well to do a run through for myself today. So yes, we will get it right, most definitely. And in fact, what I might do before I do the next one is actually kind of just record a little video for you to show you exactly how to get in and out of the webinars so that it's easier for everyone. So I think that might work better. No, but I had problems too, Muna. So okay, let's have a look. Can't think straight. Oh, and my picture didn't update here. That was supposed to be a picture of something else. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is dementia, Alzheimer's, brain fog, memory problems, but in particular the real epidemic of dementia and Alzheimer's that we're experiencing today. I'm sure that everyone probably knows of someone who has suffered this. Is very, very difficult on the person themselves, but also on the family. Now, the interesting thing is that it appears fairly strongly, there's a lot of research being done now, and it appears that it's actually the effect of sugar on the brain that is causing dementia, to the point where both of these conditions have started to be labelled as type 3 diabetes. So essentially diabetes of the brain. So, you know, for a lot of people, so we obviously have condition, people generally suffer this in childhood, and that rest of their lives. Type 2 diabetes to be called adult onset diabetes, but now that we're seeing children with it, we can't really call it that anymore. But type 2 diabetes is lifestyle related, so it's to do with your diet and the lifestyle that you lead, so the exercise that you do and things like that. And now, you know, we're looking at type 3 diabetes, which again is caused by the diet that you eat and the lifestyle that you lead. But it seems to be pointing more and more strongly towards the causative factor being sugar. And certainly anyone who has gone through a quit sugar program or a sugar detox program definitely experiences this this waking up of your mind. I know it certainly happened to me. It took maybe about 3 or 4 days, I can't remember exactly, but I just on that day, let's say the 4th day, I woke up in the morning, which was really bizarre because my alarm hadn't even gone off, and I actually had woken up before my alarm, and in the space of about 2 seconds I was wide awake and feeling like I'd had this wonderful night's sleep and I had all this energy. And instead of thinking, you know, oh, how much time have I got left before the alarm goes off? Do I have enough time to get back to sleep? Or how many times can I press the snooze button on my alarm? What I thought was, I'm ready to get up. I'm wide awake and ready to get up. And I did. And that energy lasted all day. No afternoon slump, no difficulties concentrating, no memory problems, nothing. And I thought, wow, this is great. And then it happened the next day. And I was like, what's going on here? And then it happened the next day, and it lasted. In fact, even though I have actually been eating a bit of sugar lately with the Easter Bunny having visited and so on, but you know, more than a year, probably nearly, it's probably 18 months since I did that program, and that energy has lasted and lasted and lasted. So it's an amazing feeling to have all that energy. Okay, move on. One moody mama here. And this is the other way that sugar affects your health, is by turning you into a real. So it's predominantly related to that imbalance in your blood sugar again. So when you're getting those blood sugar spikes from you know, soon after you've eaten the sugar, and then you're getting those crashes again afterwards, and lots of people get what we call hangry, not hungry and not angry, but hangry. So when you're hungry and you get really moody and you get angry, and it's because your blood sugar is just, it's all over the place. There's no balance there. So if you are someone who suffers from real mood swings and things like that, it is most likely the sugar that's doing that to you with those imbalances in your blood sugar levels. All right. Number 3 way that quitting sugar will change your body and your life. And we're going to talk about all of me. And what I'm talking about here is weight. So grumpy kitty here is because of those darned hormones. And, you know, we're pretty much the same. I think all the women here can identify with the fact that when the hormones are out of balance, we are one grumpy kitty or one moody mama, you know. So 2 of these in particular make a really big difference of weight. Weight loss, and even that weight loss resistance that I mentioned before. So we'll start with insulin, which is actually your fat storing hormone. Now, insulin has a job to do. We definitely don't want no insulin. That's the scenario with someone who has type 1 diabetes, and it is a life-threatening situation. That's why they have to inject. But what we want is for our insulin to work well. Now, going back to the scenario where, you know, you've eaten your 3 or 4 cupcakes, or, you know, your 5 Easter eggs like I might have done, or something like that, or you know, even just your meal with a lot of starchy foods in it, and I'll talk a little bit more about the types of foods in a minute. And so your meal's gone through this digestion process. You've all of a sudden got all this sugar in your bloodstream, and as I said before, sugar in your bloodstream is really dangerous. So your body, in its wisdom, has this organ known as the pancreas, and it actually dumps out some insulin into your bloodstream. And insulin's job is to get the sugar out of your bloodstream, and it does that very, very well, usually. The thing is that when there is insulin present in your body, when it's floating around in your bloodstream, your body is in fat storing mode, okay? When there is no insulin floating around, your body is in fat burning mode. Because, and that happens normally in between meals. So once your food's been digested and the insulin's come along, it's packed away all that sugar into your fat cells, and then you don't eat again for a while. Let's say overnight. That's usually the longest time that people go between eating. So overnight, at some point during the night, your body's used up all of these nutrients and the energy that you've given it in your dinner, and it needs to continue to function and maintain your body's functions, but you're not actually feeding it. So what it does is then goes to your fat cells and starts pulling the fat out of your fat cells to use as fuel for the rest of the night until you break the fast with whatever you eat for breakfast. In between meals, naturally. Now, what happens is the more sugar you have in your diet, the more often insulin is released into your system, the more insulin floats around in your system, the more you're storing fat. And in fact, some people are almost permanently in fat storing mode because this insulin starts to not work properly. And we get this scenario known as insulin resistance. And it's a little bit like the drug scenario, whereby, you know, you need more and more to get the same hit. And it's also a little bit like, you know, asking your kids to clean up their bedrooms. So, you know, you start off and you ask nicely, can you please clean up your bedroom? And they don't do it. And, you know, can you clean up your bedroom, please? Can you clean that bedroom? Right, will you clean that bedroom? And by this stage, the kids are not listening anymore, are they? They've tuned out completely. And that's actually what happens with the insulin. So when it's being released into your system so often, your cells stop listening. They tune out. And so the insulin does a really poor job of getting that sugar out of your bloodstream. And it's constantly floating around because it's not being listened to. It's not being heard. And that leaves you almost constant fat storing mode. Okay, now leptin is your hunger hormone, and this is the hormone that tells your brain when you've had enough to eat, when you're full. So when you're eating a meal, at some point during that meal, your body starts to produce leptin, and it goes to the brain and it says, hey, you know what, I think we've had enough here, had enough to eat, and suddenly you'll start to feel full. Now, the problem is that sugar blocks leptin. Sugar and insulin actually block the message that leptin's taking to your brain. It blocks the signal getting to your brain. So what then happens is that your brain doesn't recognize that you've eaten enough, and so you continue to eat and you overeat. And because you're continuing to eat, you're continuing to flood your system with some sugar, you've got insulin coming in the whole time to try and get rid of the sugar, you're continuing to be in fat storing mode. So I'm sure you all know what that feels like to, you know, to not notice the signals that you're full. And so you keep on eating and you keep on eating, and then all of a sudden you kind of go, oh my gosh, I've got to let out my pants. And, you know, you can't sort of sit up straight. You have to slouch in your chair because your belly's taking up so much room. And you can't think straight, and you're in that sleepy mode, and you just feel like you've stuffed yourself full. Do we all know what that feels like? Yeah, I want to show you what that feels like. It feels like this. Yeah. You just can't move. Although he does look kind of happy, doesn't he? There's a bit of a smile on his or her face there. But you know what that feeling's like, don't you? You just, you know, you can't move, and you just feel like you need to lie down and, you know, just let it all digest. Is there any hope for us? Of course there is. Okay, let's look at some ways that we can overcome this sugar problem. How can we stop being slaves to sugar? Let's have a look at some nutritional strategies. And, oh yeah, okay, that's good. Nutritional strategies. I just had a sudden feeling that I hadn't finished one section of the webinar slides, but I think I did. We'll find out. Okay, nutritional strategies. Don't blame the butter for what the bread did. Very, very important. And what this means is that the bread is the problem, not the butter. Now, remember I said earlier that, you know, our grandparents' days, they used to eat butter, not margarine, the full fat. And again, I want to remind you that fat is not the enemy here. Fat is fine. And in fact, because we've just been talking about the hormones, it's an interesting thing that if you were to eat a meal that was purely made up of fat, I'm trying to think of a meal that would actually be purely made up of fat. But anyway, let's just say you were to eat something that was fat and protein, so meat. So say a lamb chop with fat on it, right? And you were to eat the lamb chop with the fat on it. No insulin is actually produced in your body following that meal. So insulin spike because there's no sugar. So in this scenario, now I'm talking about bread, and some of you might be thinking, well, you know, there's no sugar here in bread and butter. We're not sprinkling the butter with sugar or anything. Sugar comes in many forms, and it's not just that crystally white stuff that that we add to our coffee and so on. We're also talking about foods that break down in your body during your digestive system into sugar. And bread is one of those foods. It breaks down into sugar in your body. Anything flour-based actually really breaks down to sugar. Yes, Janine, crackers are in the same category. So let's just go through a few of those types of foods. The worst offenders are the white stuff. All right, so white sugar, okay, white flour, white rice, white potato, all of the white stuff is a really big problem, because not only does that break down to sugar in your body, but it's been highly processed to get to that white state, except for the potatoes, I guess, and the rice. Anyway, these are what we call starchy carbohydrates. And starchy carbohydrates are essentially complicated forms of sugar. So once they go of sugar, you might have on your teaspoon. So you've got all of these individual grains of sugar. If you were to join them all together in a big long line, you then create what we call a complex happens when you eat these complex carbohydrates, the breads, essentially anything made out of flour, so that covers your breads, your crackers, your biscuits, and so on, and potatoes, anything made out of flour. What your body does, the first thing your body does during the digestive process is actually to break down those long chains of sugars into individual grains again. So your bread and your crackers and your rice and your pasta and all of that actually turns to sugar in your body. So you might have thought you were doing a fantastic job of avoiding adding sugar to your meals and to your diet, and you are absolutely doing a fantastic job if these are the sneaky ways that sugar gets into your body. My cats are having another fight. Okay, let's have another look. Oh, my whole computer off. You probably even saw him fly past. Okay, now there's a problem with this photo on the left with the eggs. Can anyone tell me what the problem is straight away? Any ideas? Think about what we were just talking about. Yep, who's got it? Yep, no, the fried egg's okay, Sue. I'll talk about that. Deb, the toast. Yes, exactly, the toast. Brown rice cracker, no good either. No, unfortunately not. Now, brown rice it breaks down, it still breaks down to sugar in the body, but it breaks down slower than what white rice does. So it's an improvement, okay? But yes, so eggs are fantastic for you. They're little nutritional powerhouses. And, I actually don't have a problem with fried eggs at all. I usually just give it a swirl with butter in the pan or a bit of a spray with some olive oil and fry the eggs perfectly fine. But the toast underneath is going to turn straight to sugar. So yes, multigrain toast, it is better than white. Again, it's a big improvement, very similar to brown rice versus white rice. It is a big improvement because the grains that are in a multigrain bread break down slower in the body. So they turn to sugar slower. Low carb bread, definitely an improvement. And that's, depends exactly what you're talking about there, Janine. Are you talking about one that you would make at home for yourself or one that you would purchase? So I'll tell you what we do in my house. One of my daughters is on a low carb diet. She has actually lost 32 kilos so far. And we make low carb bread alternatives. So it's actually bread without the bread, I suppose, or it's bread without the flour anyway. You guys can probably all see that chat box on my screen there. Bread without the flour. So it's made out of eggs and cream cheese and cream of tartar, I think, from memory. And it makes this delicious bread. You wouldn't believe there's no flour in it, and yet there is no carbs in it whatsoever. Okay, so you can buy a low carb bread from the supermarket. That is awesome. I'm going to have to go and have a look at that because I'd like to know what their definition of low carb is. But yes, certainly that is a much better alternative because it's not going to turn to as much sugar in your body. I'll do some research, Janine, and suss that out because I'm interested to find out, because we don't have that in Australia. So, okay, so just looking at the chat here. It's a Helga's brand in Melbourne, Sue. There you go. See, I'm just so isolated in the country here. I'm going to have a look at that. That's fantastic to think that they're actually producing something like that and making it available. Now, so my point with this picture was to show you that, you know, the toast under the eggs, it's a bit like, don't blame the butter for what the bread did. Well, don't blame the eggs for what the bread did here either. I actually eat my fried eggs without any bread. And I know it seems really strange when you first start doing it, but you get used to it really quickly, and you really don't miss it. So, okay, but the point of this slide is that if you include some protein with your meals, and ideally, like, I love to see people with protein in every meal, breakfast, lunch and dinner, because what that does for you is it keeps you really full, and you don't get hungry in between, so you don't get those cravings. It helps to balance your blood sugar as well. So protein, you know, obviously from fish, and I chose the salmon because it's so good for you. It's got really good fats in it. But protein from fish or from meat or from eggs or from nuts and seeds, you know, however you want to get it is perfectly fine. Now, don't be afraid of the fat. Now, look what I've got here on the right-hand side. Probably a lot of people are horrified. And I know that when I talk to people in the clinic about this, they're horrified as well to think that you can eat the skin on the chicken. You really can. You can eat the skin on the chicken and the chicken itself. So there's no sugar in this. So, well, it depends what you've basted it with. But in the chicken fat is just fat. So don't be afraid of the fat. We need fat to make hormones in our bodies. And, you know, even though hormones can get a bit out of control, I can tell you right now that if your hormones are not being produced and you haven't got enough of them, you're going to feel pretty awful. But it does depend on the type of fat that you're having. So again, we don't want to be having the deep fried type of fat. We don't want to be having the seed oils and the canola oil and the margarine. But good old-fashioned olive oil is really, really good for you. That's going to make some really good cell membranes and skins around your cells. Avocado as well, a fantastic fat. And look at this snack that they've done here. This is such a good snack. And I don't actually know what they've sprinkled on it, but my guess is it looks like cayenne, a little bit of cayenne, or paprika, I would say. Paprika and black pepper maybe, something along those lines. With some mashed avocado, and if you put a few little cherry tomatoes chopped up in there as well, absolutely delicious. And that will keep you full for ages, and it'll keep your blood sugar really nicely balanced as well. Okay, shop the perimeter of the supermarket. So what do I mean by that? Think about what's on the outsides of the outsides of the inside of the supermarket. What's around edges? So we actually have here we actually have Jasper saying hi. Hi, Jasper. And he's the one you can hear howling in the background. Around the edges of the supermarket is usually the fruit and veggie section, the fridge section, so you'll get your dairy foods and so on around the edges, and maybe the freezers as well. Sometimes they're around the edges. In the middle is the sugar. In the middle is all those aisles with the biscuits and the chips and the packaged foods and the processed foods. That's where the sugar's hiding in the supermarket, in all those middle aisles. Even in the canned foods, you do have to be careful with some canned foods, is they've actually added quite a lot of sugar. Around the edges. So buy your fruit and veggies, buy your dairy foods, buy your frozen foods and so on, but try and stay away from the middle section where the sugar's hiding. And really what that does for you is you end up just eating real food. You know, if you can, at some point in your life, if you get to the point where you can eat very minimally out of packages or cans or anything like that, and you're just eating fresh food, you are going to be so much healthier for it. Now, on my website, there is, on the freebies page on my website, you can get yourself a low carb cheat sheet. And this is actually a list of all of the foods that are low carb. So they're not going to be dumping a whole bunch of sugar in your system. They're not going to be, and they're going to put you into that fat burning mode and not that fat storing mode. And you'll also find yourself with lots of extra energy and things like that. So now, the soda and the soft drinks has come up quite a lot. Maybe we can call this public enemy number 2, but for a lot of people, it's actually number 1 as well. The soft drink addiction is a really tough one for a lot of people, and for a lot of people, it's a combination of fizz, and soft drink is one of the things that people do find really quite difficult to give away. And what I want to remind you of here is that you should never drink your calories. All right, there's so many calories in these soft drinks, and that you can drink it so quickly, and you've just dumped so many calories in your body that are all going to be stored away in those fat cells. Now, some people have made the switch from regular soft drinks and sodas to the soft drinks and sodas, and I am going to touch on that in a minute when I talk about artificial sweeteners. Okay, so let's talk about that in a moment. So what can you do to ditch your soft drink addiction? One of the best things that people find is to actually replace the habit. So because it does become a habit, and have a think about what it is for you that is attractive of it. Is it just that it's a habit? Is it the fizz that you're really enjoying? Is it the sweetness that you're really enjoying? And try some of these alternatives and put them in the place. Every time that you would go to have a soft drink or a soda, get yourself one of these alternatives and create a new habit. So on the left, we've got some flavored soda water. So if you're looking for the fizz, you can use soda water here, and you can flavor it with fruit juice of some sort. You can pop the lemon or lime slices into the glass, or you can just squeeze them in. Now, you can do this with still water or with soda water. And the infused waters, so those are with still waters with, you can actually put whatever fruit in there you like and just let it sit and infuse into the flavoring of the water, are actually really enjoyable, very refreshing. And again, if you're looking for the fizz, then you can use the soda water there. In the middle, we've got coconut water. And this is in its traditional packaging here, not in the carton or the bottle that you find in the supermarket, but the ones that you can buy from the supermarket are really quite good. So coconut, very refreshing. Some people like the taste, some people really don't like the taste. So that might be something you need to play around and try. And on the right, we've got iced tea. So I don't know if you've tried iced tea before, but it's surprisingly refreshing. So it's a really good one to try. So I'd encourage you to play around with these a little bit and try them. Another good tip is to, it sounds a bit awful, but it actually works, is to start watering down your soft drinks. So, start off by filling your glass 3/4 full with the soft drink and fill the rest with water. And what that does is, number one, gets you drinking more water, and number two, it filters down the sweetness, and so you start to get used to the soft drinks being less and less sweet. So it makes it easier when you do decide to give them up altogether to make that change. Another way of doing it is every time that you feel that pull towards the soft drink or the soda, drink a glass of water first, and then see if you still feel like having the soft drink. Because part of wanting a drink, obviously, is your thirst response. And so if you dump a glass of water on your thirstiness to start with, you may well find yourself not really looking for that soda afterwards. So, and as I said, create a replacement habit for it. Now, fake sweet. So I'm talking about the artificial sweeteners here, obviously. And on the left, I've got a bottle of poison. And you know what? Honestly, that's what they are. The majority of them are just poison, particularly the aspartame And in Australia, that comes under 950 and 951 in the ingredients lists. I'm not sure what it is in the other countries actually, but anyway, aspartame. It's actually a brain toxin. So they've actually seen people who've, been quite addicted to drinking diet soft drinks. And when they've actually quit, they get back a lot of their brain function. So their memory improves, their focus improves, and so on. So on the freebies page on my website, again, there is actually a free report, I'm pretty sure there is. I think there is, called High Intensity Sweeteners, and it explains some of these artificial sweeteners and what they actually are, the chemical substances that they're made of, and the effects that they have on your body. And I'm pretty sure I put it on the freebies page. If it's not there, just send me an email and I'll send it off to you. Now on the right, this is actually stevia. And this is a herb that is exceptionally sweet, at least 10 times sweeter than sugar, if not more than that. And I'm not suggesting that you go and stick some leaves of stevia in your soft drink or in your cooking, but they actually do process it down into a powdered form. And in fact, there's quite a lot of stevia forms these days that have been made to look like sugar. It's granulated, just like sugar. You can also buy it in a liquid form. And 1 drop is actually I think 2 drops might be equivalent to a teaspoon of sugar. Some brands have a bit of an aftertaste to them, so experiment with different brands. In Australia, I find the Natvia brand is really quite good. We use that in a lot of our cooking, and my daughter uses that whenever she's having something that is sweet. She'll use a bit of stevia. So look for that. Check the label again, because a lot of the time those stevia products are mixed with some other sweeteners as well, and you certainly don't want to be going to the trouble of getting stevia only to find there's aspartame in there as well. So, okay, that's our nutritional strategies. Let's have a quick chat about the psychological strategies. I'll just check the chat here. It's popping up at me. Organic stevia powder, Muna. Yeah, perfect. That is great. All right, now, thinking about, making these changes in your diet and your life and the ways that that's going to change your body and your life, one of the really big things in making any type of behavior change or diet change or any sort of change in your life is to think about what is it that's motivating you. And it's all very well to say, well, I want to give up sugar, but what does that mean for you? You want to give up sugar because what? What do you get out of it? And I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas here. So one is so that you can, you've got enough energy to chase the kids around, or you're going to be around to see them grow up and to see your grandchildren grow up, because you're not going to be coming down with those lifestyle conditions, your heart disease and your diabetes. Perhaps for you, it's your weight. And you've noticed that the weight is creeping on more and more, and you're wondering, what's that going to look like in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years? It could be your skin. You might have looked at that elephant's bum and thought, well, maybe that could be me at some point. And perhaps it's just to be healthier. So particularly if you've had a situation where you've been diagnosed with a specific disease or condition or something like that, and you're ready to make a change because you want to be healthier. Whatever the motivation is for you, I would encourage you to make a decision in regard to Muna said healthy and happy retirement, and that's it. You don't want to get to retirement age and suddenly be so unwell that you can't enjoy it. You've worked all your life to get to this point. You want to be able to enjoy it. So whatever your motivation is, make a decision based on what's important to you, and don't make a decision based on your taste buds, because I can tell you your taste buds will change. You'd be surprised at how sweet real food tastes when you're not constantly dulling your taste buds with sugar. And I once heard Anthony Robbins say, and I don't know if you know Anthony Robbins or not, he's a very well-known coach, I suppose. I won't call him a guru because he actually has a documentary on Netflix called I Am Not Your Guru, but a lot of people follow him. He has some really good messages. And he actually said, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. So, and I think that's a really good way to sum up the fact that, you know, don't make that decision with your taste buds. How long does it take for the taste buds to change? Not very long. You'd be surprised, sometimes only a few days for people. And it continues to change over time. So the longer that you go on without having sugar in your diet, the more sweet things start to taste. So, for example, you know, roasted pumpkin or carrots taste really, really sweet when you don't have sugar in your diet, or you don't have much sugar in your diet. So I'd encourage you to think about how you want to feel, and think about, oh, here, now this, I forgot about this one. This was my other motivation. Is this what you want to do? For some people, the motivation is fitness, and there's obviously varying degrees of fitness. Perhaps some of us aspire to be able to do this, and others might just want to be able to move well. You know, you've got all those aches and pains in your bodies, the arthritis and the aching joints and so on. My golly, they go away when you take sugar out. So that was a good motivation as well. So yeah, I encourage you to think about, how do you want to feel? You know, throw that stuff out, pour it down the sink, set a date. Think about when you're going to do this, and when you want freedom from those cravings and that out of control eating. And some people do this bit by bit. You know, they start to cut down their intake of sugar and gradually wean off it, and others dive in headfirst with no backup plan. But I would encourage you not to put it off until tomorrow or next week or whenever, because, you know, we all know that tomorrow never comes. So make that decision and just do it, because there'll always be another excuse. But the reality is that this is killing you, slowly or faster, but it is killing you. And the other thing that particularly our Western societies seem to really be stuck on as a concept is the fact that we use sugar or sweet things as a treat, you know, and we encourage our children, we teach this to our children, you know, we give them sugary treats for behaving or whatever. And I just want you to think about that a little bit differently, and think about other ways of rewarding yourself that are meaningful for you, but that don't necessarily involve food or sweet things, because I want you to think about sugar not being a reward, because actually you're not a dog. You don't need a food reward. So see if you, and look, isn't he cute? I mean, we'd all want to give him a little treat, wouldn't we? So, and you know, if you're in doubt, sit down and write it down. You know, look at the pros and cons, stick them in the buckets here, and decide if it's worth the sacrifice. So you might look on the pro side. You know, you'll lose some weight, you'll live longer, you'll have more energy, you'll feel better every day, you'll see your grandchildren grow up, you'll be more productive at work. But the downsides might be, you know, that you might not be able to eat those cookies, and maybe not the ice cream either, or you might have to explain why you're eating certain ways to other people's. But most of these things can easily be solved. And again, you know, if you're not craving it, then you really don't go looking for it. So write it all down, no matter how silly it might seem, and put your two lists side by side and ask yourself, is it worth it? So think about, you know, how do you want to feel? Okay, so my 5-minute intro to my program that I'm running, and then I'm going to give you the secret to killing the cravings. Okay, we're almost done. Your sexy sugar-free body, because, you know, if you feel good, if you've got lots of energy, you look at yourself in the mirror and you know you look good, you feel sexy, don't you? And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. If you feel good, then you know that you feel sexy. And so I'd like you to think for a moment, you know, is your willpower to stop eating sugar as weak as your stomach on a rolling sea? And maybe you're someone who doesn't get seasick, but stop being a slave to sugar. So I've developed this program to be the fastest way to finally ditch that sugar demon and get back control over your eating without giving that sweet tooth a root canal, without sewing your mouth closed, without selling your refrigerator or your firstborn in return for your favorite indulgence. even if you have tried to quit before, and a lot of people have tried to quit, so that you can finally get that sexy sugar-free body and kiss that sugar addiction goodbye. So imagine what the sexy sugar-free body and life could look like for you if you could get on top of those cravings. So you wouldn't have to starve yourself or be eating lettuce 3 times a day, but you'll find that your hips and your thighs and your belly would have slimmed down. You won't have any secret midnight binges or out of control eating. So you won't feel like a naughty teenager sneaking around the house at night. You'll have as much energy as a 2-year-old, but you won't have those 2-year-old toileting issues. And your body and joint aches will have vanished, so you can move easily. So you're actually going to reshape your body from the inside out. And your work colleagues will be amazed that you're the only one who's not having that 3 p.m. slump or that after lunch slump. And instead, you're actually focused and enjoying work. And one of the biggest things that I think is on its own is really worth it is no more guilt. Right? We're all so guilty for everything, and guilt is a really useless emotion. So let's quit the guilt, really. A couple of quick testimonials from people who have done the program before. So Lisa said that her day revolved around the next sit of sugar, and it was always a constant pick me up, but she was still always tired, and she'd been slowly gaining weight even though she thought she was eating well, and frustrated at the lack of willpower to change the whole situation. But in just 7 days, and the program just goes for 7 days, it changed her life. Energy now never runs out, weight loss kicked off, feels so much better about herself, and sugar-free is sexy. And Shoshana had been sick for quite a while, actually, so she was really kind of flat. And it helped her to get back on track and be a bit more committed to looking after herself. So she was a massage therapist, so she already knew a lot of this stuff, and she'd already talked about it with her clients, but she wasn't doing it for herself. And we do that a lot, don't we? So it allowed her to focus on herself again. She got better energy, got rid of the cravings, and she says that she liked it because the program was not too strict and she could be open about how she followed it. So she loved the flexibility of it. So the program is a 7-day quit sugar program, and I'm going to guide you through the whole thing. And I put myself there, a qualified nutritionist and former sugar addict, because it's true. So in 7 days, we're going to do some live coaching calls, well, webinar type things similar to this. There'll be a private Facebook group where you'll get guidance and support. You can ask your questions anytime, and I'll be in there every single day to answer your questions. And you get the program guidebook, which gives you all the information you need to guide you through. You get a meal plan, and you get all the recipes, and they are delicious. It's a really nice program. And, this sexy sugar-free body, well, why would you want that? Because the best bodies have their own sweetness. And you know what? I've got to tell you a quick funny story about that. I actually had to ring a company today about my website, Sexy Sugar-Free Body. And that's where you can go to check out all the details of the program. It's sexysugarfreebody.com. And it actually wasn't going to the right page. And I had to call them up. And the guy I got on the phone said to me, he said, so which website are you talking about? And I said, oh, it's the Sexy Sugar-Free Body. And he said, oh, yes, because the best bodies have their own sweetness. And I said, really? I can't believe you came up with that just straight off the top of your head. And he said, you can steal it if you like. So there it is. I stole it from him. What to do. 7 days of the meal plans, recipes, shopping lists. So you won't feel deprived at all because it's really, really delicious food. You get the Facebook group. We're going to do a kickoff call before we start. So that will guide you through the prep, exactly what to do so that you're ready to go. And we'll do another follow-up call after the program had finished as well. So it is on sale right now. I've just put it up tonight, and we start on May the 1st. So it's about 10 days away roughly. And it'll run all of that week. So we'll do the kickoff call on the Thursday prior to that, and we'll do a follow-up call in the week after that. So, but the main part of the program runs that particular week, and it is on special at the moment for $97. And for my Aussie people, please notice that is in USD. you don't need to worry about that, because if you decide to join up, you'll just pay by PayPal and they'll do all the conversion for you. So, so you don't need to worry about that happening, and it will tell you exactly how much it is. But, you know, if you don't get in early at midnight on Wednesday next week, it's going to go up to the full price again at $147. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, go and check out the website. All of the info is there. You can read through it all and see exactly what you're getting. And there's lots of questions and answers there as well. So if you're not sure what you're going to be eating or anything like that, it's all there on the website. So www.sexysugarfreebody.com. I would love to take you through this program. Alrighty, here we are, the secret weapon to kill sugar cravings in 30 seconds flat. I wasn't kidding, it is actually a thing. Now, being a nutritionist, we do use food in a lot of cases, and I've given you some strategies for using food to get past the sugar cravings tonight. So making sure that you're having the protein with each meal, getting rid of those hidden sugars in your diet, so the breads, flours, pastas, that sort of thing. As well as the psychological strategies. But here's my secret weapon. It is called glutamine. And glutamine is, it's an amino acid, so it's a protein. And it comes in a powder form or in capsules, doesn't matter which you have. And what it actually does is, it honestly cuts those cravings in 30 seconds. So you can get this it's a little bit easier if you've got it in powder, but if you get it in capsules, you can just open up the capsule to get the powder out. And you literally, if you've got a tub of powder like this picture's showing, you literally can, you know, lick your finger, dip it in the powder and put the powder on your tongue. Okay. If you've got capsules, just open up the capsule straight onto your tongue. Okay. It's quite sweet. So it's almost a sugar replacement, but you know, it's not unpleasant tasting. And so every time you've got that craving, every time, you know, you've got that thought implanted in your mind to go and grab that soft drink or that cookie or whatever it is that's your poison, as soon as you've got that thought that goes into your mind, you grab your glutamine powder or your capsule straight on your tongue. And if you're using powder, maybe, you know, the same amount as what you get out of a capsule. So it's probably 1/4 of a teaspoon. You know, you can't, it's not going to hurt you. So don't be afraid of using it. Straight onto your tongue, give it 30 seconds. And honestly, the cravings are gone. It is just amazing. So what I teach my people in the clinic who are going on to weight loss programs, and you know, my daughter used this in the beginning of her program as well, is I say to them, okay, it usually works in about 30 seconds, but say, for example, you're craving that soft drink, go grab your glutamine powder onto the tongue, promise yourself 5 minutes maybe, you know. If you still feel like it in 5 minutes, you can go and have it. But give yourself a chance to let it work. Mooney, you can get it from a pharmacy or a health food shop even, but most pharmacies would have it these days. And again, doesn't matter whether it's powder or capsule, you just open it back up. Look, give it a try. It is amazing. So most people who go into my programs, they'll use this for 3 or 4 days at the most, and then the cravings are gone. So, and that, you know, I'm talking about people who are going on to say a low carb diet. So it's a really distinct change to their normal diet. And it really helps you get through. So I am quite confident you'll find this really, really useful. Okay, where are we at? Q&A. I am going to, here we go, and see if you guys, I mean, you've been asking questions as we've been going along, but if you've got any more questions at this point, just pop them into the chat box. We have been going a while. I've lost track of the time. So any other questions at this point, pop them in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll let you guys go and get back onto your evening. And I get to go back to my packing. So I'll just wait a few minutes and make sure that if anybody's got some questions. I hope that you've got some really good information out of the webinar. And that there's a lot that you can use for yourselves, and that you've learned something interesting tonight as well. So thanks, Deb. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And there will be a replay of the webinar as well. So I'll send out the replay link hopefully tonight. It depends on how long it takes to process the video. Thank you. Having high protein, Sue. Having a high protein and low carb diet, good for trying to beat sugar cravings. Absolutely. That's going to be your best bet, in fact, Sue. High protein, low carb. Yes, most definitely. You're on it. And go to my website and check out the freebies and grab that low carb checklist or cheat sheet. And that'll give you an idea of, in fact, on the cheat sheet, there's actually ways to put together your meal. So it says, you know, it'll tell you how much protein to have, how much of everything to have. Lynn, you're a type 2 diabetic. Will you be okay? You certainly will be. And no, you won't need to add anything extra for it. So, so there's actually no products or supplements in the program. There's none that you need. I'm trying to remember exactly what goes into it. Look, it is a food-based program. So no, there's no issues with you being type 2 diabetic, Lynn, and it'll actually rebalance your blood sugars and you'll get a lot out of it. What about for kids? Should they be following the same diet as a regular thing? Kids do need some carbs for energy. And so unless a child is, you know, quite overweight or bordering on diabetic or something along those lines, I wouldn't necessarily put a child onto a low carb diet, but certainly a diet free of added sugars is not going to hurt anyone. So we're not going to, there's actually no physiological requirement for sugar in the diet. So we can definitely survive very, very well without it. And we do get a lot of natural sugars in our diet. You know, fruits have a lot of sugar in them and kids generally are fruit eaters as well. So, yeah, Deb, I wouldn't put a child on a low carb diet unless you were looking for weight loss or diabetes treatment or something along those lines, but low added sugar most definitely. Janine will get the glutamine. Great. And yep, go check out the website. I'm glad you see it. Okay, Sue. Okay, yep, no problems. Do that. Contact me and we'll have a chat. Thing, but we can certainly make sure that one of the biggest issues with gastric sleeve surgery is making sure you get enough protein, and I'm sure that you have experienced that. So protein first so that you get enough, but yeah, we can definitely let's talk about that. So send me an email. You'll find my email on the website. So glad to hear you enjoyed it. That's great. And thanks for being interactive, guys. I really appreciate your comments throughout and talking to me. So it's good not to be just sitting here talking to yourself. So yeah. Any more questions before I let you all go? So you could see the cats as they were jumping backwards. They look like they've settled down a bit now. Actually, they've disappeared. Sleep time. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, I will let you all go. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a wonderful evening if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and I will no doubt talk to you all again soon. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Good night.